Welcome to Madlik. My name is Geoffrey Stern, and at Madlik we light a spark or shed some light on a Jewish text or tradition. We also host a Clubhouse every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and this week, along with Rabbi Mintz, we identify the miracle of the talking ass as a singular gratuitous miracle which serves as neither a sign or lesson, neither punishes the wicked or provides a victory to the children of Israel. We use this as an excuse to explore the refreshingly ambivalent attitude of the Torah and Rabbinic Judaism to miracles. So leave your magical thinking at home and join us for Wonder of Wonders, Miracle of Miracles, a talking donkey. This week's parsha is Balak, which is about a Moabite king who looks out into the desert and sees the children of Israel on their way, about to cross over his country on the way to their promised land. And he is concerned. He's scared. The actual word that is used for him being scared is vayagar, which is interesting because it's the same root as the word for stranger. But fear of the stranger we'll leave for another time. What interests me today is that he sends out some messengers to hire a prophet, a Moabite prophet named Balaam, and the messengers go to this Balaam and ask him to curse the Jewish people, and Balaam says, well, I'll have to sleep on it, and he truly speaks to the Lord our God that night, and the Lord says, you can't curse these people, they are blessed. And he goes back and forth with these messengers, and they offer him more and more money. So he takes another night, and finally he cajoles the Lord into letting him go to at least meet with the king Balak. And on the way there, he's riding his donkey, and his donkey sees an angel at the end of the road. Maybe they're on a bridge. And much like the story of the Black Beauty, the donkey turns to the side, and Bilaam whips the donkey. The donkey sees the angel again, turns to the other side. This time he scrapes the leg of Bilaam. And now Bilaam is really angry and hits him again. And finally, I should say hits her again. And finally the donkey opens up. It says, then the Lord opened the ass's mouth, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times? Balaam said to the ass, you have made a mockery of me. If I had a sword with me, I'd kill you. And the ass said to Balaam, look, I am the ass that you have been riding all along until this day. Have I been in the habit of doing thus to you? And he answered, no. And so we have a story of a donkey talking, and what is remarkable to me is that it's just part of the story. Bilaam doesn't say, wow, I didn't know that you could talk. He responds to the donkey. And so I'd like to use this as an opportunity to understand and to explore the function, the place, the value of miracles in religion in general, and in the Jewish and ancient Israeli traditions in particular. And what strikes me is that, and we will explore all the different variations of miracles that appear in the text. But to me, this is striking in just kind of being gratuitous, maybe being there for no good reason. Could have been an angel themselves talking to Bilaam. So the question that I raise is, what is the function of the donkey in this story? And then in general, what is the place of the miraculous in Judaism?
The Torah is full of miracles. The receiving of the Torah and the splitting of the sea and the 10 plagues. What's interesting is talking animal. The only other talking animal that we have is the snake at the beginning of the Torah, where the snake talks to Eve. And it's so fascinating to compare the snake talking to Eve to the donkey talking to Bilaam. First of all, it's interesting about the choice of animals. Now, I'm not an animal person, so to me, all animals are the same. So I don't know why in one case you choose a snake, in the other case you choose a donkey. Just choose one animal. So I don't understand why there's a different type of animal. But look at the first case of the animal speaking. The snake tries to trick Eve. The second time, the donkey actually tells the truth to Bilaam. What's the purpose of the animal speaking? Both to trick Eve and to tell the truth to Bilaam. I find that to be an interesting question.
And I like your comparison. I would like to kind of broaden the question, not so much of animals speaking, but of nature being changed, of breaking the rules of nature. But I do think that even if you look at it from that point of view, there are different types of miracles that we see in the Bible. There are, miraculous salvations, the splitting of the Sea of Reeds. Clearly, when this small band of Jews wins a battle, that's a miracle. But it's a functional miracle. And there are other miracles that we'll explore today. But to me, what strikes me about maybe both of these miracles, besides the fact that there are animals talking, is it almost seems like it's gratuitous. You sometimes you see a movie and you say, they didn't need that sex scene. It was a gratuitous sex scene. In this case, I don't think you really needed the donkey to talk. I think that maybe the angel could have spoken. It almost doesn't seem to be inherent in the story. In the case of the snake, so the snake really was tempting Eve. And of course, this was very early on in the kind of the segmentation of the animal world and the human world. So you can even make a case that maybe the snake sheds its skin, so it's immortal, or it was immortal in the old world. Or even better yet, let me try this distinction between the snake and the donkey. The snake could very easily be associated with Satan. And the donkey, as you said, was speaking from a good place, from God. So I think that it doesn't surprise us if Satan goes, the evil in the world goes and breaks the rules. But the question of why this donkey spoke, why we needed it to speak, and is it unique from that point of view, from a point of view of gratuitous miracles, if you will? What do you do about that distinction?
That's a great question. So the snake has a job because the snake is there to trick Eve, and maybe you needed something out of the ordinary to trick Eve. She wasn't going to be tricked in a normal way. But what role did the donkey play? Actually, Geoffrey, you can ask in a more basic question. Just in the story of this week's Torah portion, what role does the donkey play? If you were to delete the word donkey, would it change the story at all?
I totally agree, and that's why I think you can call it superfluous, you can call it gratuitous, and it doesn't even seem to get the reaction one would expect. Bilaam doesn't say, "My God, a talking donkey." He just answers it. He says, "You've made a fool of me," like he talks to donkeys every day. So I want to suggest that this is not strange only to us. There is a passage in Pirkei Avot that talks about 10 things being created on the eve of the first Shabbat, right after creation had been finished, at twilight, ben hashmashot. And it lists a bunch of miracles. It says the mouth of the earth, which I assume is a relationship to Korach, the mouth of the well, the mouth of the donkey, which is a clear association with the donkey in our story, the rainbow, the manna, the staff of Moses, I guess when he was in front of the magicians in Egypt. And the bottom line of it is this Mishnah in Avot, first, second, third century AD, has a problem with miracles. And what it is ultimately saying, unless I'm reading it wrong, is that every time one of these miracles happened, it's almost like an algorithm or a hack written into creation. So that donkeys did not speak, but somehow they threw a little piece of code into the donkey heritage that at that moment on that bridge, that donkey was going to speak. And it's far-fetched, but what's not far-fetched is their clear unhappiness and unwillingness to accept that the rules of nature change. And what makes that remarkable to me is these are rabbis. These are members of a religion, and is not religion based on breaking the laws of nature, on a higher authority, on miracles? To me, this bias against changing the world and for nature and the rules of nature is very impressive. What's your read of this Mishnah?
So, I think we want to take it back for a minute. It says here that these things were created being note. What do you make of that? They were created in the last moments of Friday. It's almost as if they're not part of the normal creation. They were snuck in at the last minute when nobody was looking, right? That's the first question you have to ask. It's telling you that they don't quite fit into nature. But what is the idea of Bein Hashmashot?
To me, it's as you say. It's kind of, the code was written, the product was created, and somebody, in this case God, threw in a few secret back. If I was a programmer, I would know the right word, but back codes that at the precise moment that they were necessary, they would do what needed to be done. But ultimately, it was preordained. It almost smells like either God cannot or will not make changes in the laws of nature besides these 10 or 11 changes. That to me is what is impressive. But the Bein Hashmoshot, the twilight part of it is, this is a fuzzy area. This is whether it's an afterthought or a little tweak or twinkle. I don't know.
Good. I think that's good. But I think that what we're actually, Geoffrey, lining up all of the oddities of this talking donkey. When he was created, what he did, how was he different than the snake, right? And it's all set the fact, like you said, it's gratuitous, it's not necessary. So not only does the Torah make a big fuss about something that doesn't need such a big fuss, but the rabbis seem to make a big fuss about something that doesn't need such a big fuss. Doesn't that interest you also?
Well, it does. It's hard to say that the manna was gratuitous. So I don't think that they're lined up necessarily against gratuitous stuff. But what they are saying is it's a very strong, I would say, and powerful expression of the rabbis' dedication and commitment to the laws of nature, that we do not live in an arbitrary world where either God or other spiritual forces can play with it. And I think that you could actually make a case that this kind of general approach, which I would love to characterize as being either neutral towards miracles or almost anti-miracles, led to great scientists coming out of our tradition, such as Maimonides, who clearly picks up on this discussion in many of his writings, who believe that there is a science out there. There is laws of physics and laws of chemistry and all that. It's not arbitrary. It's like Einstein said, God does not play dice with the universe. And I think so. That's on a scientific level, but even for a spiritual level, it seems to me they didn't get a rise from the miraculous. And in fact, they had to go out of their way to come up with this theory to downplay the miraculous. And from a spiritual community and from a 2,000 plus year old religion, whether now, but certainly in the past, where we lived in a magical world and there was magical thinking, and many times it was associated with religion, they didn't seem to buy into it. And that's what strikes me as so interesting.
Good. I like that. I like that connection to Maimonides. I like just generally, I mean, this is really the clash between miracles and science. This is how you started when you asked me, are there miracles? And the answer is yes, there are miracles. But how do you explain miracles in light of science? Now, Geoffrey, when you talk about miracles, are there miracles? Would you say that this story of the talking donkey is like the splitting of the sea?
So I think not. And that's why I said I find the story of the talking donkey unique because it's gratuitous. It wasn't necessary. The splitting of the Red Sea, and we can, I was going to kind of parse different types of miracles that are in the Torah. They say that Eskimos have 100 words for snow. Well, it seems to me the rabbis have a bunch of words for the miraculous. And, when they talk about, there's a word called an oat, a sign. But again, it's not gratuitous because we call Shabbat an oat, a sign. We call the tefillin an oat that you put on your arms. And from that perspective, where it was a change that caught your attention, the change was not significant because of the change. It was significant because it was a symbol. It was a sign. Another word that's used is a mofet. And that goes more in terms of things that are changes in nature, like the 10 plagues, like the splitting of the Red Sea, that inflicted God's wrath or power on sinners. I guess you could include with that even Korach, although we're going to get a second to the word used there. But again, these were very practical, and they didn't necessarily have to be impossible. They might have been improbable. The splitting of the Red Sea is something that was miraculous because it came at the right time, at the right instant, but it could be explained. All of the magicians were able to explain everything that Moses did with the staff, which was included in our list. So besides Mofet and Oat, the other one is Nes. Which is, I think, a common word for miracles. But here
now,
too,
what does the word nace mean? Nace is like a flag, a marker.
It is, but if you recall, when God tested Abraham before the sacrifice of Isaac, before the Akedah, it said, "V'Hashem nisa et Avraham." He tested him, and Nachmanides explains that it is a flag. It is something that rises up, but it's also a test. In other words, it's an opportunity for us to reveal our strength, our power, our perseverance. So it seems to me that, and there are more words for miracles, so we'll get to them in a second, but for these most common words are symbolic as much as they are changing nature. They are morally, ethically, spiritually edifying in case of testing Abraham and being able to survive the test. So again, I do think there is an issue of a gratuitous miracle. And the funny thing here is that it doesn't even refer to Bilaam's donkey talking as a miracle. It's so funny that it just kind of puts it into the narrative without making any changes. But again, if we're using this as an excuse to explore the biblical version of miracles, it too shares with the rabbi, I think, very little value for gratuitous miracles. There's no point in just impressing people by changing nature and saying, there must be a God, there must be a spiritual element. The changes in nature are either to protect, to defend, to punish, or to edify and to serve as a symbol.
Okay, all this is great. Now, I have another question, and that is, what do you make about the fact that the donkey spoke to a non-Jewish prophet? You think that's significant? Why does it, of all the ways to use the donkey, isn't it a funny way to use the donkey?
Well, I see it as a bigger question. I think it's beautiful that the prophetic power of Bilaam the prophet is also taken for granted. And that teaches me that God speaks to all people. Why in this particular instance there was the use of a donkey, I don't have an answer for you. What I'm more impressed with is that Bilaam is without any explanation, understood that he can go to bed at night and speak to our Lord, which is his Lord. But I don't have an answer about the donkey being used to speak to him in particular.
Now, Michael, I think, has jumped up as a speaker,
which we always welcome.
I just have a question. What does Balaam learn from that moment when nature is upside down? What does he actually learn when everything he wants to do, according to his plan and his desires and his strategies, what does he learn from something that is completely incomprehensible to him? What changes does that bring about in him?
Yeah, if you read the text, his answer to the donkey is the only insight that we get. And what he says is, you have made a mockery of me. It's not as though, and I guess this is a parallel with the story of Black Beauty, the horse that saves the life of the rider. These horses and animals that save us, they all seem to get punished. But in this particular case, Bilaam is embarrassed. He's embarrassed. It almost seems as though he has this ability to be a prophet. He wanted to exploit it for money. He literally wants to do what he's asked to do, but he can't. And now he's embarrassed. And I think it gives us an insight into him. He's not our typical, vision of a prophet in terms of being a pure person. He seems to be someone who can tap into these powers and is able to exploit them. Rabbi, what's your feeling?
Okay, I like that a lot, but I think, Michael, you've identified a problem in the text. Means, what is the significance of that piece of the story? I want to just turn it, kind of take some of what Geoffrey said and some what Michael said, and I want to just pull back a minute, Geoffrey, to what you started with about miracles. And I want to know where you think this miracle of the donkey speaking falls in the Torah's kind of list of miracles. Is this a big miracle? Is this kind of a beside the point miracle? You called it gratuitous. That's something else. that has to do with the fact that it's unnecessary. What about in terms of like changes of nature? Do you think having an animal talk is as big a miracle as splitting of the Reed Sea?
So where I'm going in my mind with this is using the donkey, who is, for better or worse, a universal symbol of a lowly creature, a creature of labor, a creature that gets no respect, a cousin of a horse who is a beautiful creature. So I think, and that kind of is echoed in Bilaam's comment. You're embarrassing me. Maybe if you were a lion or something with more stature. But I do think that the donkey, therefore, we have to assume was picked with intentionality. And I think that the message that the donkey is sending, therefore, is very also humble and down to earth. And I guess I promised that I wouldn't leave everybody in a cliffhanger as to how the whole story turns out. But I do, at this point, want to say that Bilaam, ultimately, his arm is twisted, and he has to deliver some sort of blessing or curse, and it turns out to be a blessing. So the blessing that he gives is in every synagogue. As you walk in, it's Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenosecha Yisrael. How goodly, basically, are the tents of Israel, which, again, a tent is as humble a life, pastoral, nomadic life, as you could ever have. And to me, the whole story is a celebration of the simple things in life. If you want to be trite, it's helping us recognize that there's a miracle in the most simple things. So that, to me, kind of ties together why a donkey was used in this particular situation and what the takeaway was, either from Bilaam or from God through the mouth of Bilaam. Orna, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
This voice of God that was talking to the donkey, because the same way, whenever God wants to speak to us and tell us something that maybe we don't like, he speaks through animals. The snake, and they're all lowly animals, not the humbleness of God that he talks to us, The message from the snake was beautiful message, because, that God, Adam and Eve should not leave Gan Eden, or should leave really Gan Eden, to go explore the world. And then Moses, that he spoke to what's his name, to Pharaoh, also through the snake, and everything, every miracle that happened. Even let's take Isaac, what was it? The animal that was stuck in the. I mean, it's all about animals, and I'm telling you, it's the voice of God that's telling us. And the message is so beautiful, and it's also for nowadays. Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. We all need to love each other, and we have to respect each other everywhere, in this country and in Israel, with anti-Semitism and everything.
I just want to say, Geoffrey, I think it's important to say that, given what happened in Florida this week, you think about, Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov. The blessing is the most simple thing. Where we live is the most simple thing. But we rely on it, and you see what terrible things can happen even in the most simple thing that we have.
Absolutely. And it's just, you see the images of children talking about their parents or grandparents, or parents talking about their children. It's really just it's harrowing how this building was pancaked down into rubble. But it does remind you that in the structures that we live are lives, and those lives are based on relationships. And what I was thinking in terms of this kind of takeaway in terms of ultimately Bilaam could have been used as a mouthpiece to give any message. But ultimately, the blessing that he gave related to just the simple community of these Bedouin nomadic Jews in the desert. So I was thinking of another type of statement in the Talmud. I think I might have even quoted it before, where a Roman matriarch asks a rabbi, after God created the world, and don't give her credit for knowing this, but not only created the world during the 7 days of creation, but even during that twilight period, after you did it all, what do you do with yourself? Because she obviously understood that God is not changing nature on a regular basis. And the answer, for those of you who know the story, is wonderful. And it says that God is making matches, mishadech shiduchim. He is joining people together. And it's a wonderful story, and it goes on. But it reminded me of the song and fiddler, miracles of miracles, wonders of wonders. And if you remember the lyrics to that story, it almost is identical. It says, wonders of wonders, miracles of miracles. God took a Daniel once again, stood by his side, and miracle of miracles, walked him through the lion's den. And it goes down through the walls of Jericho, and it talks about the Red Sea parting, and it talks about every little miracle or large miracle that God did. But he says, but the most miraculous one of all is that out of a worthless lump of clay, God has made a man of me today. And it, to me, my dad gave me a book called Wonders of Wonders by a Columbia professor, and it talks about everything that went into writing the play. And so I did a little research, and I looked for, were they aware of this midrash, that God is Mishadech Shiduchim? And it turns out I was surprised that the writers of most of the lyrics were Jews, but have very remote from their Jewish background. And literally, they came up with an idea of miracles. And according to this book, they were in a motel and they grabbed the Gideon's Bible and they started looking for miracles to put in the lyrics. But to me, they were spot on. And maybe it's because this idea we Jews have of the real miracles in life relate to human beings, to the ability of us to find connections with each other, for the abilities of us to have hope when there should be no hope. Those are the true miracles. And to me, that's what Matovu Oholecha Yaakov is all about.
That's really nice. I like that as an ending. I think that's a beautiful way to end a discussion. You said it was a little light today. I think talking about miracles is not light at all. I think there's a lot of real good substance in here.
Well, thank you for that. I agree, and I think that the donkey certainly got his money's worth today because he triggered this wonderful conversation. So thank you all.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. See you next week at 4.